friends, it's Jessie here. Welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, welcome. For today's video, I am going to be closing out my paycheck budget for the first week in August. It is the paycheck that we received on July 30th. We used the money from that paycheck to fund July 30th through August 5th. I have already filled out my expense tracker for the week with everything that we spent. That was a previous video, go check that out. I also, in that video, updated our sinking funds transaction log, and I took you through the bills that we have paid so far in August using our savings that we had set aside last month. So all of the money that came out of all of our various accounts was accounted for in that video. Now I'm going to use this information from this expense tracker to help me fill in my paycheck budget. We're going to see how I did overall for this first week in August. And if there's any money kind of left over, we're going to talk about what we're going to do with that as well. So I'm going to pull this out and fold this over just because it makes it a little bit easier to write. And we're going to talk first and foremost about the amount of money we were working with for our actual column here. So I budgeted $1,500, and that is what I set aside to use for this week's budget. For bills, I budgeted $700. That was $700 to go into a savings account for next month's bills. I already have money set aside for all of August's bills. I was able to use some money that I had originally set aside for sinking funds. I reallocated that to a savings account to get us a month ahead on our bills. So the money we are saving for bills in August those funds are for September's bills. So I budgeted $700. As you can see from my expense tracker here, well, actually, you can't see it because it's not in frame. Sorry about that, you guys. A little bit distracted today. I'm doing a bunch of batch filming, and it is storming like crazy outside, and the rain is very distracting. Hopefully you guys can't hear it, but it's rain and thunder and lightning. We're under a tornado watch right now, so I'm a little bit distracted. I do apologize. But yeah, as I was saying, you can see here, I did set aside that $700 for bills. And that was it for this checking section. I'm using this checking section as our fixed expenses. This cash envelope section down here is for variable expenses. I may end up changing this budget worksheet to reflect that, to say fixed and variable expenses. I designed this worksheet originally when I was doing cash envelope budgeting. I just don't budget that way anymore. So we'll see about that change, but for now, let's go ahead and jump down here to this cash envelope section, or my variable section here. So for groceries, I budgeted $250. You can see all of these transactions in pink are grocery transactions. We did a lot of grocery shopping. My strategy for this week was to try to buy as little as possible. And then if I needed something else, I would just go back to the store for it. I tend to be the type of person that overbuys on groceries. I'll stock up the fridge with a ton of food that we can't possibly get through. And then it'll either go bad and it'll go to waste, or it'll just sit in the pantry for me to use later. And I'm trying to get better about just buying what I'm going to use during the week. So that was the strategy this week. I ended up spending a total of $176.95. So we came in under budget for our groceries. You know, if you watched this paycheck budget setup, that I budgeted things higher than I thought we would actually need so that I could be sure to come in under budget for this first time out. If you're not familiar, I have been budgeting by the month for a long time, just recently switched to paycheck budgeting, so I really wanted my first paycheck budget to be a success. So we budgeted $250, we only spent $176.95, which is fantastic. All right, for eating out, we had one planned eating out session that happened this week, and then we had another day that we ate out as well that we didn't originally plan for. I'd like to get us down to eating out just once a week. This week we ate out twice. It just is what it is. The amount that I budgeted for eating out was $150. The amount that we actually spent was $123.15. So we did come in under budget. I would have liked to spend less than $100. But it didn't happen, and luckily I budgeted higher than that, so we still came in under budget overall. And then for spending, we did some spending out of our sinking funds, but we didn't need to do a ton of spending from our paycheck budget here. So we only had one transaction for $21.17, and that was the total that we spent in variable spending for this week. So let's take a look at what we actually spent in this section here. So we spent $176.95 plus $123.15 plus $21.17. $321.27 is what we actually spent. So we came in under budget in this variable category by $178.73, which is fantastic. Okay, so that means then that we're gonna have some extra money to work with for this budget, which feels great. So for sinking funds, I did set aside $200. You would have seen me stuff that $200 already into our sinking funds, or into our savings challenges. Ultimately, all of the money from the savings challenges is going to go towards sinking funds. I think at the end of the month, I'm going to take everything out of all of the savings challenges and put it towards the savings, or towards the sinking funds that I have sort of allocated. But $200 did go into sinking funds. However, I have some extra money to work with since we came in under budget with our variable categories. So we already had a $100 buffer here, plus we came in under budget by this $178.73. So that means that from this overall budget, if we did the total, we would have $278.73 left. I definitely want to leave a buffer in my account, okay? So this buffer of $100 down here, I'm gonna leave. And in fact, I'm gonna bump it up a little bit. So if we have $278.73, I'm gonna do, I'm gonna do a $200 buffer and the 73 cents. Okay, so if I do that, that's gonna leave me with $78 that I'm actually gonna stick into the sinking funds or the savings challenges. So I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna put an extra $78. Didn't budget for that, but since I have it left, I'm gonna put the extra $78 here. And so I've already stuffed those savings challenges for the week. Maybe in the future, I will wait until after I close out my budget to stuff the sinking funds or the savings challenges. That way, if I have extra money, I can put those towards them. For now though, maybe I will just film a bonus video where I stuff this $78. Or maybe I'll find a fun way to use that $78 and do something different with it. I don't know, but $78 in addition to the $200 that I have already stuffed is gonna go towards my sinking funds, my savings challenges. So that's gonna be a total of $278. So we are saving more than we planned, which is a good thing. I'm not mad about being over this budgeted amount here. So let's just make sure this all adds up. So we did $1,500 total, minus the $700 we put towards bills, minus the $321.27 we put towards variable, $278 towards sinking funds, nothing to extra debt. Since we paid off all of our credit cards, we're not focusing on debt right now. So if we do that math, 1,500 minus 700 minus 321.27 minus 278 is the $200.73. So that we're just gonna leave in the account as a buffer should we have a week where we go a little bit over budget. If we don't have a week where we go over budget, then we can allocate this buffer money towards something else at the end of the month. But for now, having a buffer is not a bad thing. So that is the end of this paycheck budget. Now let's just really quickly go ahead and set up paycheck number 2. Man, can you guys hear that rain? It is really coming down out there. I need to check the radar and make sure that we have not been upgraded to a tornado warning, because that would scare me. Okay, so the paycheck date for this week, let me check my calendar really quick, is August 5th through the 11th. So 8/5 is the payday, and that money is gonna last us through the 11th. So I wanna take the buffer amount, the $200 with 73 cents from our buffer, plus the amount that we allocated from my husband's paycheck and my paycheck and anywhere else. I'm not gonna break that down. But I do know that the buffer was $200.73. You guys just saw how we came up with that. Plus the $1,500 I allocated for this week. So we have $1,773 to work with this week. And the way that we're gonna set this up is very much like what we did last week. So for September's bills, once again, we are going to set aside $700. I don't know why I added the zeros there. I definitely didn't do that here, but that's fine. So that's it for our fixed expenses. We're just gonna set aside $700 for next month's bills. For our variable expenses, we have grocery, we have eating out, and we have spending. All right, so for grocery, honestly, I think I'm gonna keep these numbers exactly the same as what I budgeted last week, with the hope, obviously, that we will spend less, but the budget worked out really well last week. Why rock the boat? So last week we budgeted $250 for groceries, so we're gonna do that again. For eating out, we budgeted $150. You guys know my goal is to spend less than 100, but I will budget 150 since we have that little bit of wiggle room in our budget. And then for spending, still gonna do 100, but again, as little as possible is the goal. At the end of the month, if we have extra money left, we'll just put it into savings or our sinking funds or whatever. But I don't wanna come in over budget. So we're just gonna budget the same amounts. 250 plus 150 plus 100 is $500. Okay. For sinking funds, we're going to do exactly the same thing we did last week, and we're going to budget $200 to go towards our sinking funds. If we spend less in variable, then we'll take some of that money and we will put it towards sinking funds as well, just like we did last week. But for now, that's the budget. We're not budgeting anything for extra debt, so we're gonna skip that. So this income amount is $1,700 with 73 cents. That is not our actual income. That's just the money we are working with this week based on what we brought in from our paychecks plus anything we had left over from last week. $700 went towards that checking amount or our fixed expenses. 500 went to variable, 200 to sinking funds, nothing to extra debt, So now we'll just do the subtraction. So we started with $1,700.73. We subtract out 700 minus 500 minus 200, and that's going to leave us with $300.73, and that we will just put towards our buffer for now. All right, so that is a look at the plan for next week. Very, very similar to the previous week. Why rock the boat? Why do it differently if what we did last week worked? Let's just go ahead and keep on keeping on. So I will see you guys next week for a budget closeout. Be on the lookout for that. Later this week, you're going to see some sort of allocation for this extra money here. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do for that, but I will figure it out, so be on the lookout for that. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, please give it a big thumbs up. That really, really helps out my channel. Don't forget to subscribe if you have not yet done that. I would love to have you come back, and I will see you guys next time with another video. Bye, friends.